Firearm and greetings from Niagara Falls. A very beautiful and powerful quality that is shared in our self-development maps is surit. In English, this may be defined as friend, but the more philosophical meaning is one who is large-hearted. You've heard that before. You've used that before. What does it mean practically? It means someone who's living for the bigger. A family that lives for community, a community that lives for society. Our community is trying to practice being a surit by living for society. And we are doing that right now through our effort for safety, the safety of society. I continue sharing insights into inspiration to facilitate these efforts. Every one of you knows, especially on a day like today where we celebrate our spiritual teachers, how valuable access to a guide is. Yes, everyone, this saves our life. It makes our life. That accessibility is in the positive, but accessibility can be in the negative also. We are fortunate that our children have never played with the chemicals in our home. The toilet cleaner, the Lysol, the lighter, etc. They just didn't have those personalities, and we're fortunate. But whenever we go to the pediatrician, ours is a male, so he will share, are you keeping all of these things locked up and inaccessible? And we say yes, even though we don't. We should, but we're fortunate. But my point is, that accessibility is in the negative, correct? If I think this is purple juice, but it's actually some sort of chemical cleaner, that would be super destructive. So accessibility swings both ways, in the positive, in the negative. To encourage safety in society, when it comes to astras, which are weapons that are released, back in the day, arrows, now bullets, out of sight, out of mind works. If these were inaccessible bullets and guns, then we wouldn't be able to resort to them. Eventually, we would stop thinking about them. I've listened to so many sociologists, psychologists who have shared people have anger in their personalities. And when my anger goes up against your anger, before there were bullets and guns, we would fight with our fists. And in doing so, there would be harm, but it wouldn't be so extreme. Now that anger has not changed, maybe it's become worse against you and I. Now I don't use my fists. I use bullets and guns. That harm is exponential. It is not even comparable. But what if we could go back to making those weapons inaccessible? How much better society would be. With that insight, our team will continue to share about what our community can do for society. And remember, we live in society. It is a secretly selfish agenda that we have. Team?
As we heard, firearm violence unfortunately has become a major public health issue, a major public health problem. And that's really the focus of today is, as we just heard, how firearm violence is affecting our safety. And at the end of these satsangs on August 18th, we will be, training everybody or talking everybody through how we can communicate with our policymakers on creating policy change on common sense gun laws. And that's actually something that we can also be doing right now. There's a step-by-step guide on our website that I'll get into in just a minute. But I did want to, this is a very basic infographic just to highlight, why this is a public health problem. you see from this that unfortunately the number of deaths and injuries from firearms has been increasing. Um, Actually, among children and teenagers, firearms are actually the number one cause of death. And this is after car accidents. And so, really, what the public health community did with car accidents, as those were also seen to be, increasing, especially for children and teenagers, is there were public health interventions that were put into place. So seatbelts were put into place, making sure cars, pass certain safety standards. And that's really the idea of our effort this summer is in the same way that we've done that for cars, let's also do that for firearms or for guns. Something else I just want to highlight as well is we look at this pie chart right here. The majority of firearm deaths are due to, I think this is a dark blue color, are due to people taking their own life. And so we know that firearm violence is 100% preventable. We also see that the other majority of firearm deaths are, and we see this as a yellow, are due to people taking another person's life. And so that inaccessibility to firearms is what is so important. Again, in our policy making, when we talk about this on August 18th, the public health interventions that will really be focusing on are background checks. So, making sure before someone purchases a firearm, a background check is done. This can even be true or it's not only for people who might take another person's life, but actually people who are maybe missing and they're on the missing persons list. They might want to go and purchase a firearm to take their own life. And so conducting these background checks can literally save lives. Another public health intervention is also safe storage. So making sure that people do have firearms, just like we heard, if there are chemicals in the house, making sure they're stored properly. In the same way, the number of accidental deaths or intentional deaths, as we see from this pie chart, is very very high. And so simply by providing safe storages, safe locks, and again save lives. And so, as you see, we have this effort continuing this summer. I'm kind of skipping around here, but our giving effort, communicating with policymakers. We do have a step-by-step guide on our website. So this is something that you can start doing now. We already have over 400 communications done with policymakers. This includes letters, phone calls, even going actually in person and sitting down with your policymaker too. So we do have a letter actually that you can, copy and paste, personalize it based on obviously your personal details. If you have any additional data points, we do have some data points also listed in there too. But again, we have 3 public health interventions listed: background checks, safe storage. There's one more that I'm forgetting right now, that's listed, and we also have a link to show you how you can communicate with your policymakers and to send them that letter, or to even pick up the phone and to read that letter to your policymakers. We also have an organization that you can donate to as well that is really promoting, again, firearm safety. Next week, during our Sunday satsang, we will be diving into, specifically how firearms are really harming women and the violence against women through talking about intimate partner violence. And so I do want to end us with a reflection for this week. As we are going through the week, and as we, might be watching, listening, reading the news, maybe learning about new data points about any topic, not just about firearms, but really any topic, I think we can all think about where we might be othering. And really what othering means is when we, hear something sad and it's not happening maybe in our geographic location. It may not be happening, within a community of people that we necessarily identify ourselves within. It becomes, unfortunately easy for us to say, well, it doesn't affect me, right? It doesn't affect someone that looks like me, feels like me, sounds like me. It's not affecting where I live or maybe even where my loved ones live. And so how we can instead, maybe, and I do this too, and I, I unfortunately see something, there's just so much happening that my mind just wants to skip over it and look at something else. So how instead we can remember, our commitment to the safety of our community, how we can maybe even take an action step to better that safety. So it can, again, be our effort for the summer. It could be something else, another idea that, that we all think about. And then lastly, and I think this is really the most important action step that we can take, is to really try to see the oneness between us and them. Seeing that like collective consciousness, the divinity that exists in all of us. And really, I think the more that I try to practice that, the more that I do want to do more for not just people in my state, country, but all over the world. And so um, we will be sticking around the team, for the next few minutes if people do have questions or even want to ask us a little more about, writing to policymakers, because again, that's something you can start doing now. But we will be going through that in August, August 18th. And if people have any questions, of course, please let us know. But we are really excited to see so many people joining us this morning, and just looking forward to continuing these conversations with everybody. So we can go ahead and close out with one Om. Om.